Ricky Chopra, let me begin by asking you a straightforward question. Talk to us about Bill C-12 and tell us how fair or unfair it is that Canada is imposing this legislation at this stage now.
Now, Krishna, I think first of all we have to see whether this bill, which is now an act
Okay.
actually holds any water when we talk about Constitution of Canada, when we talked about the 1951 Convention by the UN, to which Canada is a party, and which says there should be no timeline as far as claiming asylum is concerned. So clearly this act fails these two tests on moral accountability, on constitutional examination. So that's my stand, that it fails these two very, very important parameters. Now, coming back to why Canada is doing it, is of course it has its own reasons. They want to make the administration safer. They want to see that chemicals like fentanyl are not crossing the borders. They want to see that people who are misusing the law, they're not able to do that. But they're forgetting a very important point, which is the rule of law. And the rule of law internationally says that it's every nation's duty to protect someone who's running away from somewhere and has come to your refuge. So in that way, I see this act will face a lot of opposition, both in Canada and everywhere else. Where you see Indian students, especially from Punjab, they go there in thousands. They go in thousands, and suddenly you kind of do a crackdown on them. This is not very unfair as far as humanitarian grounds are concerned. But even if we talk only of rule of law, you cannot just suddenly change the law and have the students go for a panic attack. So that's what my initial stand on this is. Though I agree that it will bring about a lot of good changes in law, good changes in procedures, but the intention of the law has to be seen, and the repercussions to it have to be seen. And I think this is where it fails very, very badly.
Okay. What does this bill do for Indians in Canada waiting for their permanent residency to come through, and also Indians aspiring to go to Canada?
All right. So first of all, I agree very, very minimally with Surrender there. So first, let me rebut a little, and then I'll come to the point. See, there was a law always there in existence. There was a refugee board where one could go, kind of do the trial. Now it's done away with for a category of people who are a little late doing what steps they have to take. Now there's just a pre-removal risk assessment. So the law was always there. Now the law's teeth have been taken away, which were in favor of the students in India or many other parties likewise. Now, how they will be affected is, first of all, you're going to not see a lot of immigration there. Because if a country can change laws without taking any expert opinion from the asylum experts, either from the UN or other organs of the world, then they can do anything, anytime, right? This is how you lose trust in a country. This is how, and these days, basically no one is listening to any of the international bodies anyway. So I just hope that Canada does not continuously take this, way and go forward on this. Now, secondly, how students who are there will be impacted. Now, see, students go there, they do their studies, they apply for, living there as a work permit so that they could work. Then they apply for residentship. There was another way to apply for asylum. There are cases where students who are very, very truly in requirement of an asylum. Now, just because they have missed the deadline and you don't have a board there now, which was like a court, it was like a quasi court. You've done away with that, and then you say that the officers who are there to control the borders will analyze whether you have the right to stay or not. They'll do an analysis of it straight away. So, of course, students who've gone there, who studied there, who've gone there with kind of the absolute guidance under the law, now suddenly find themselves without any help from the law there. So I'll say, if you talk strictly about the law, keeping emotions aside, this is a step which is not only retrospective, which it is, but it's very, very bad, because I don't think any international expert has given an opinion in its favor, or they actually took any kind of guidance while drafting it.